Day one of jury selection in Donald Blum's federal firearms trial shows it may take a while to seat an impartial jury.
Governor Ventura says not so fast a presidential wannabe Pat Buchanan. Plus, you can learn how to curl for free next on News 6 at 10.
Later on The Tonight Show, Jay goes to the mat with Jesse Ventura and lays down the law and order with Angie Harmon. Plus, the effervescent Ricky Martin. Your local news is next.
Good evening, I'm Mark Mallory.
And I'm Michelle Lee. A freak jet crash in South Dakota leads our news tonight.
At least 5 people were on board the private Lear jet, including pro golfer Payne Stewart. Before crashing, the aircraft had flown for hundreds of miles without a pilot at the controls. The flight began in Florida and was supposed to end in Texas. But something went terribly wrong, somewhere in between. Leanne Gregg has the latest from the scene of the crash.
An unbelievable journey ends in a farm field in northeastern South Dakota. Wreckage from a Lear jet. On board, reigning U.S. Open champ Payne Stewart.
It's a large crater in the ground.
Big enough to do.
For my estimation, it'd be big enough to put a large utility vehicle such as a Suburban into.
There it is, that's right there.
Air traffic controllers lost voice contact with the plane shortly after its takeoff from Orlando heading to Dallas. After the plane veered from its flight plan, assuming it was on autopilot, security advisors called in military planes for a closer look. Pilots saw frosted windows and no signs of life, indicating loss of cabin pressure.
It was very disheartening and very frustrating for me to pull up alongside that aircraft and not be able to offer any assistance.
Stewart, the winner of 3 major tournaments, was born in Springfield, Missouri, where part of his family still lives.
That he was such a family man. He loved all of us. He loved coming home to Springfield. This was his home.
The popular champion, known for his old-style knickers, was headed to Texas to play in a tournament in Houston.
Jets from Duluth's 148th Fighter Wing stationed at Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida, were deployed to help in the mission, but were called back when other aircraft responded. We'll have the latest on the Learjet crash tomorrow on News 6. Work began today to assemble a non-biased jury for the federal firearms trial of Donald Blum.
Attorneys questioned 8 prospective jurors in Minneapolis today, and 4 of the 8 were dismissed.
As Kim Kaiser reports, it could take a while before an impartial jury is seated.
Donald Blum is on trial for possessing guns, like the ones investigators found on his property near Moose Lake back in June. The results of that search will be allowed as evidence in this case, which stems from the law that says it's illegal for convicted felons like Blum to have firearms. In court, lawyers want to make sure that prospective jurors understand this case is separate from the state charges of kidnapping and killing Katie Poyer. But her family is watching this trial closely. Katie's grandfather, Lloyd Simich, listened to the start of jury selection.
They know what they're doing. I just wish it was a little faster. Get on with it and get over with the whole works. Outside that, everything seems to be going fine.
He says he hopes the trial will be quick and straightforward.
You tell your kids once to stay away from the stove and they go back, you wrap them on. That gets their attention, and I'm sure that should be the same with somebody who's put on parole. They told him they can't do it. Hey, he breaks the law. Let's put him where he belongs.
Jurors were extensively questioned about what they've heard in the last few months about Katie Poyer's disappearance, as well as their attitude toward guns. Many said it would be difficult to put aside their feelings about the separate kidnapping and murder charges. Jury selection will continue here at the courthouse tomorrow morning. Once jurors have been chosen, lawyers say the trial could be over in a few days. Prosecutors estimate they have 1 to 2 days of witness testimony. They have about 20 witnesses they could call. The defense lawyer says he has about 5 witnesses. In Minneapolis, I'm Kim Kaiser, News 6.
Kim will bring us the latest from Blum's federal trial tomorrow on News 6. The Reform Party is now officially the political home of Donald Trump and Pat Buchanan.
The 2 defected from the ranks of the Republican Party today. Trump registered as a member of the Reform Party's New York affiliate, the Independence Party. The billionaire says he's joining the Reform Party because the Republicans are too conservative and the Democrats too liberal. Trump, who's considering a run for the White House, could face off against political pundit Pat Buchanan, who announced today he was bolting the GOP. Buchanan's Republican supporters will now have to decide whether to follow him to the Reform Party. Minnesota's Reform Party Governor Jesse Ventura says he welcomes Buchanan into the party, but warns there's no guarantee he'll get the presidential nomination. Meanwhile, Ventura will announce the fourth part of his big plan tomorrow, and you can hear it from the governor firsthand. The theme of this policy initiative is called Minnesota World Competitor. The presentation will take place in St. Paul at 11:30 a.m. The public is invited to hear it via teleconference at 10 sites from around the state. The locations in the Northland are Lake Superior College in Duluth, Hibbing Community College, Bemidji State University, and Central Lakes College in Brainerd. There's no charge to take part, and registration is not necessary, but people are encouraged to be there by 11:15. Staff from the Department of Trade and Economic Development will be at each location to host the event and to answer any questions. Today's blue skies and mild temperatures were welcomed in this last week of October.
Well, about the only thing that marred the day were blustery winds. George is outside in the weather garden where things have died down a bit. George?
They've died down more than a bit. It's very calm. Well, calm's probably an overstatement, but it's not like it was, which is fine. We just had a big rush behind that front. The pressure fell steeply and then the pressure rose steeply, and that's what was driving those winds at times up there, 40, 45 miles an hour. Here's how things look in the satellite picture. Watch that front go by. Just that little line is headed off through Michigan. Then behind it, you have some high-speed winds in the upper layers of the atmosphere causing cloudiness. That's the jet stream, plain and simple. I'll show you more on that jet stream in a little while. Temperatures, there's not a big snap behind this particular front. There's not a lot of cold air pouring over the border behind it. It is getting somewhat cooler, though, 39 over at Grand Forks. If you're with us earlier tonight at 6 o'clock, it was 58. So there is a little bit of cold air, but it's way behind the front. But that'll be coming in later tonight, so I think by the time we get around to tomorrow, it's going to feel a lot more like the end of October. Complete details on that, plus your 6th day in a little while.
All right, thanks a lot, George. Dredge it or cap it. Residents near Duluth Stryker Bay spoke out tonight about how to handle the bay's big pollution problem. We'll put you in touch with the issue and what residents say should be done.
A former NFL kicker is in town, but he's not talking punts or place kicks. Tom has that coming up in sports. Plus, they're between a rock and a hard but smooth place tonight at the deck. Find out how you can get in on the action coming up.
Keeping you in touch with today's news with Michelle Lee, Mark Mallory, meteorologist George Kessler, Tom Hansen Sports, and special reports from Barbara Riles. You're watching News 6 at 10. You're in touch with News 6.
The future of Stryker's Bay was the topic of a heated debate tonight.
For several years, Stryker Bay, which is located along the St. Louis River, has been contaminated with pollutants.
As Jody Grayson explains, residents living in the area want it cleaned up, but disagree on how to get the job done.
Homeowners living on or near Stryker Bay listened and watched as a panel of representatives from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency discussed the future of their land.
Does the sediment in any of those sites contain mercury?
The area is a Superfund site polluted with cancer-causing compounds from coal, oil, and gas plants that operated in the area from the 1800s to the 1960s.
There's some cancer-causing chemicals involved in this process, and there have been for 40 years. So we would like to see the area be cleaned up and returned to its pristine state if that's at all possible.
Those living in the area agree that it does need to be cleaned up, but the question is what method should be used. The MPCA wants Stryker Bay and a nearby dock dredged, with the polluted material permanently sealed in a current slip. Another option would be to permanently cap the area, filling it in with soil and sediment and creating wetlands.
What we did say is that we would...
At the meeting, hydrologists presented their studies and recommendations to the board for review.
In other words, we'd be taking water out of the river, we'd be taking highly contaminated sediments out of the river.
Whatever method is used, the cleanup will cost millions of dollars and several years to complete.
No one is going to get everything they want, Some people will have to compromise. I think most people will probably have to compromise. But the net environmental benefit will be the returning of this area back to a more healthy environmental state.
In Duluth, Jody Grayson, News 6.
The cost of this project could range from $20 to $60 million and could take 4 to 13 years to complete.
The Pollution Control Board is expected to make its decision tomorrow. The City of Superior is getting closer to approving a budget for the year 2000. The budget would increase the city's tax levy between 1% and 2%. Find out where the additional money is going in tomorrow's Daily Telegram. And Virginia's Public Utilities Commission heard about potential cost savings tonight from 2 engineering consultants. A new plant turbine and the projected steam phase-out could bring big savings. Jim Ramsauce has the story in tomorrow's Mesabi Daily News. The winds were whipping through the Northland today, but George says they won't keep it up.
In fact, the only thing that will be consistent in our forecast is change. George will have the active 6-day forecast next.
Meteorologist George Kessler holds the seal of approval from the American Meteorological Society. Tonight's weather is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield.
You know, the way that wind was blowing, it kind of felt like we were on one of the plain states, Texas or the Dakotas.
Yeah, well, of course, you lived in South Dakota for a while, and it's very windy out there.
Yeah.
You get those no trees, not many hills to break things up. It felt like that here, but the good news is it's died down. There was someone who called me last year, and she said, "Why is it always windy on trash night?" I don't know.
Last year?
I was thinking, well, maybe the year before. I don't know.
The raccoons like it that way.
I guess.
So do the bears. You got to tell your bear story.
No, we're not going to go into the bear story. I don't want to get the bear in trouble with the man, because then they'll haul off the bear. He just eats garbage.
You spotted a bear.
A very big bear, but yeah, that's just between us and.
Well, I spotted one too in Carleton County. Remember?
Well, Carleton County. Well, they get lots of bears. You live out in the country. This was in town. I was a little surprised to see the bear, but anyway, we got to talk more about temperatures. I'll get in trouble here. 45 at Hibbing, 46 at the airport, and you know what? What can you do? You got those temperatures out there, they're beginning to fall away. Let's just get outside before I get myself in trouble and take that poor bear with me. Although I think the bear can take care of himself. That was a big bear. You see those small bears sometimes. This is a big bear. Anyway, let that go. But my thanks to the neighbor for calling and letting me know what was going on in the backyard. We'll let that go. Temperatures around the region have indeed been falling behind that front, but not dramatically. The thing that's been falling behind the front are those winds. Now, I know it says north at 20, but it just seems a lot less gusty, and perhaps that's just my naive observation. Down here at the base of the hill, it's quite a bit easier to ignore some of those winds because you don't quite get the same blast because you're in the lee of the hill. Up on the top of that, maybe Isabella, places like that where the winds really get roaring, probably still have quite a breeze, but they'll be going away. And I do hope that your garbage isn't redistributed around the neighborhood because of it. Pressure is rising strongly behind the front. Humidity is 36%. Numbers around the region, this is where the cool air is filtering in, but we're not talking about a lot of cool air. It's 48 in Hayward, 49 in Ashland, 48 over in Ironwood. Not a big deal. Out to our west, 45 in Hibbing, 45 degrees also at Bemidji. International Falls, the farthest north spot on our map, they and Fort Francis, both coming in at 48 degrees. Temperatures across the country, here they are in motion. That pool of cool air north of the border is really doing a pretty good job of staying there. And so on the other side of the jet stream, do you see that? It goes really quickly from these greens on up to these light blues, but light blues right underneath it. Then you get these dark blues and even some purple showing up. That's highs in the 20s and the 30s. What's going to be happening over the next few days is that we will begin to see the jet stream sliding to the south. This is the current configuration behind that front. There's a lot of whip going on, and some of those upper level winds are getting pulled down to the surface. That's part of why it was so windy today. Anyway, that little gap that I was showing you up in Canada, it's going to be coming down to the south. And over the next week or two, and this is what happens every year. This is why, statistically speaking, we start to talk about permanent snow cover in the first part of November, because those cool temperatures begin to slide down this way. It's perfectly normal. That's the way things are supposed to go. But when that occurs, we in the northern tier of states suddenly find ourselves on the cold side of the jet stream. The storms will start to tuck in underneath us instead of running off with the heart of them in Canada. and those will be our first snow producers. But that's still 10 days away or more. I'm not saying that there's anything like that in the forecast, just sort of a preview for you. Off to the west, a windy front and a rainy one has come out of the Pacific Northwest. Look at this. There's some neat things out here. You see those? Oh, I love this when this happens. The jet stream's running straight into the Rockies. There are no clouds right on the other side of them because the winds get pushed down the hill. All the clouds dissipate, but it's like a launching pad, and you get these beautiful, perfect lines. You can see where the mountains are. But the other thing that happens underneath there is that the moisture is pulled out by those mountains. You get up in there to Alberta and British Columbia and down through Montana, 9,000, 10,000 foot peaks, and that takes away a lot of that Pacific moisture. So one side, look at all this rain, but it doesn't emerge on this side. It gets dried out completely. Isn't that cool? I think that's cool. It's just, and it works like that, and that's why we had less snow last year than we have in some previous years, despite a favorable storm track, is because they kept coming straight over the Rockies, couldn't bring the moisture with them, and that was all she wrote, the end of those storm systems. And tomorrow we're going to be looking at the same thing setting up again. That front will come down into the Dakotas, it'll dry out, and as it crosses the plains, won't bring anything with it other than 1 or 2 clouds. Tomorrow will be a little cool behind that front, but we'll already see a warm up on Wednesday. So for tonight, give it time. It will be less windy, and as the winds go down, so will the temperatures. Upper 20s, lower 30s, but at least we won't be talking about wind chills like we were a couple of days back. I think it was Friday when it was 6 degrees in the wind chill up in Grand Marais. For tomorrow, a bit cooler than it has been. Today's highs were nudging 60 in a lot of places. Tomorrow, more like the mid-40s with a lot less wind. The 6-day outlook, really, it's going to be a calm week, and we've had a bunch of those. Only had 3/4 of an inch of rain this entire month. That's why your weathercasts may have been sounding a little repetitive. Best chance for precipitation will come on Friday, but temperatures plenty warm, so it'll be liquid precipitation. But then we start to see that cool down, which may be a permanent cool down, just in time for Halloween. Mark and Michelle, still mild out here. Maybe get a late night walk in.
Well, we'll try. Thanks a lot, George. Still to come on News 6 at 10, we'll tell you when and where you can learn to curl for free.
Plus, 2 area college hockey players are honored by the WCHA, and it's a big honor to play on Minnesota's all-state high school soccer team. Find out who made the roster next in sports.
And now, sports with Tom Hansen.
A couple of area hockey players had a big impact in the WCHA this weekend. Huh?
The Bulldogs split with the Badgers in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that was key. You know, the goal is to at least split on the road if you're an away team. And, of course, they did it without Mike Sertich, who was out ill, so not too bad for the Bulldogs. The Northland produces plenty of college hockey players each year, and 2 of those Northlanders have been honored by the WCHA. Hermantown's John Francisco had 3 assists in the Bulldogs' sweep of the Badgers. He's a freshman forward for UMD and was named the WCHA Rookie of the Week. The former Hawk was playing in his first WCHA action. And Bovie's Adam Hauser has been around the block before. He's now a sophomore goaltender with the Gophers, and he has been picked as the Defensive Player of the Week. The one-time Greenway goaltender stopped 74 of 79 shots over the weekend against the North Dakota Fighting Sioux, who threw at him last weekend in a tie and a loss. The 6'3", 202-pounder had a saves percentage of .937. The Gophers under Grand Rapids native Don Lucia are winless in 4 games this year. They are 0-3-1. The Gophers will host Boston College this weekend. Here's a look at the women's WCHA results after 2 weekends of play. UMD leads the pack at 4-0. They were ranked 6th nationally last week. The Gophers 2nd, Badgers 3rd, Bemidji State and Minnesota State Mankato looking for their first conference wins of the year. The Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference has named 2 UMD athletes as Players of the Week. Former Duluth East standout Annie Siddick has been named the Volleyball Player of the Week. She had 32 kills in a loss to Mankato over the weekend. UMD is in first place in the league. She was also named the Division II Player of the Week throughout the country. She had 72 attacks in the Northern Michigan match, setting a school record. And Jenny Warwick of the women's soccer team, also Player of the Week. She had 4 goals and an assist in UMD's 2 wins. The Bulldogs have the 2nd seed in this weekend's conference tournament. Busy time in prep sports this week. The state tennis tournament will get started Wednesday in the Twin Cities. Hibbing will face Minneapolis South. Hibbing's volleyball team ranked 7th in the state this week as playoffs get underway. Mesabi East volleyball ranked 9th in Class AA, and the high school football playoffs will be held around the Northland tomorrow night. Here are the pairings for the first round of the Wisconsin playoffs. Northwestern will play in Spooner against Baldwin-Woodville. Washburn will face Hurley. Shell Lake takes the road to face Lake Holmcomb. In soccer, the Proctor boys and girls teams both headed to state this week. The girls will play in the early game at 5:30 against Trinity. The boys will play at 7:30 versus Rochester Lourdes. The Minnesota Vikings turned Jeff George from a backup to a starter yesterday, and it seemed to work as they scored 40 points in a win over the Niners. He took over for Randall Cunningham.
Why we were 2-4, but it's so easy to, put in another guy and, say the team's rallying around it. That, that's not the case. We were, for whatever reason, we were struggling the first few games, and it just didn't work out for us. And we were playing some tough teams, and came up short.
Green Bay Packers, of course, also won yesterday. They will host former head coach Mike Holmgren and the Seattle Seahawks next Monday night. College football, the Wisconsin Badgers are very much alive in the Big Ten race. They are 4-1. Running back Ron Dane gained 214 yards Saturday and is just 483 yards away from the all-time major college rushing record.
The last 2 weeks, and then you look at the way our guys played, which I thought really played well against Minnesota, and then particularly for about 3 quarters against Ohio State. I don't think we've played any better than that over a 4-week stretch. I think that's a good observation, and I'd have to agree with it.
And a former place-kicking star for the San Diego Chargers was in Duluth tonight, but he wasn't giving tips on the basics of field goal kicking. Ralph Bernerschke set 16 team records with the San Diego Chargers and was in Duluth tonight to talk about his battle with inflammatory bowel disease. It was so bad he collapsed on a team plane but recovered and went on to kick for 8 more years in the National Football League. Bernerschke is chairman of the Great Comebacks Award Program. He joined up with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation to help others deal with the disease. And as you saw earlier in the show, unfortunately, it's a sad day for the sports world. Payne Stewart was among the dead in the crash of a runaway Learjet in South Dakota, that is. Stewart was 42. Stewart won 11 tournaments during his PGA career, including 3 majors. He won the U.S. Open this year and back in '91 here in Minnesota. Stewart also played on the U.S. Ryder Cup team this year for the 5th time. He was easily spotted during tournaments wearing knickers from his own clothing line. A unique individual. He's going to be missed by many, 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 especially golfers and golfers on the PGA Tour.
Indeed, Tom. Thank you. Yep. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hacks, hammers, and hog lines could all be found at the deck tonight.
The Duluth Curling Club is offering free lessons to anyone who wants to learn. And there's a lot more to curling than meets the eye. It takes balance and agility to make a good curler. But perhaps the best part is that age doesn't matter. The Curling Club has members from age 5 to age 80.
We have solely adult leagues and we have junior leagues, but we also have open leagues. We have something for everybody. And curling will make the winter fly by.
And if you think you have what it takes to be a good curler or just want to meet people, the Curling Club would love to see you at the deck tomorrow and Wednesday beginning at 6 o'clock. And make sure you wear warm and comfortable clothing.
I don't know how people can stand on the ice to begin with and then throw the stone around.
Then they slide.
Yeah, well, it's, there's a lot of style involved.
Well, sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's something that interests me. Because where else are you going to learn how to curl? I mean, do they have curling clubs in San Antonio? I don't think so. I think you get just pretty wet. But, yeah, it looks like fun. I guess I ought to talk about the weather, otherwise I'll get in trouble. Temperatures around the region aren't going to be bad this week, up and down. We have seen those temperatures up and then fall and then up and then fall. And that's going to be the case this week. We'll be somewhat cooler tomorrow. Temperatures in the middle 40s for highs. Then we'll bounce back on Wednesday as the next front slides by. Could be a blustery occasion once again. Then we cool down for Thursday. Then we warm up for Friday. The next storm system may have enough gumption to produce some showers, and that'll be about it. Halloween looks nice, but a little cool. And as we go into Sunday, again, more partial sunshine and temperatures already starting to bounce back. But I think the cool temperatures that head our way next week, there's going to be a different character to them. I think they might stay. So if you like those warmer temperatures, this could be your week.
All right. Thank you, George.
Yep.
And thanks for staying in touch with us tonight.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Men's clothing provided by Mainstream Fashions for Men in the heart of downtown Duluth. Closed captioning provided by Schneiderman's.